What's your guys' view? My guess is you'll say it's all overblown and a misunderstanding of the Respect for Marriage Act, which repealed DOMA and the LDS Church giving support for it. Are you guys with that decision? Do you think that was the right decision, the wrong decision? Is it a misunderstanding from outsiders?
I haven't read the act. I haven't read the act, so I won't comment.
Yeah, I was about to say, we believe in being subject to kings and principalities and municipalities in what's called upholding and sustaining the law. So we also,
but it wasn't law yet. Just a clarification. It wasn't law yet. They came and supported it prior to it being law.
Exactly. From what I understand, they supported an early version and an early draft that carved out simultaneous religious protections for those that didn't believe in it, and simultaneous housing and employment and hospital visitation and tax protections for those that already had existing state-sanctioned marriages. And we were trying to give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and give unto God that which is God's, just as Jesus Christ said believers should do. Secondary and tertiary versions obviously went through different drafts and revisions, and what the church endorsed may not have been what was passed, but we definitely try and take the commission of Christ of supporting, giving unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and giving unto God's that which is God's. It was not a tacit endorsement of gay marriage or of the state or anything. We're just trying to give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and give unto God that which is God's.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your thought back in 2008 when the church actively campaigned against gay marriage by supporting Prop 8? Do you see a difference in the approach on an official level? Because
we actually
no, but there was a huge
did an
difference.
episode on this.
Yeah, I'm a California.
Right, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
What do you believe the Prop 8 activity shows a difference now with respect for marriage support?
Yeah, there's a huge difference because they were advocating for religious protections in the most recent legislation that did not exist in Proposition 8. Had Proposition 8 passed as it was written, it would have nullified the 501c3 tax status of the church. Not nullified it immediately, but it would have resulted in a logical set of dominoes that could lead to the nullification of the 501c3 status of the church, making it no longer a charitable institution, making our tithing no longer a charitable tax deduction.
Of any church.
Any church that didn't do church-sponsored gay marriages. One of the biggest complaints of what was now, it was then the most expensive measure ever run in American politics. I think it was $63 million after all of the receipts came in were put into that one measure alone. One of the biggest criticisms I heard from other opponents of the law were they thought it was poorly written in a way that could strike that fear into the heart of religious people. Unlike previous acts and measures that have been passed concerning domestic partnership. Generally, most Mormons have no problems with domestic partnership laws because they don't threaten religious 501c3 status. Now, this is all legalese that I can tell you is inaccessible to most people, but those two situations were different. They were different in small ways, but on very large doors can swing on small hinges.
So you see, looking from the outside and the trajectory of the Mormon Church to a lot of us seems to be going swinging.
One of those laws was
way.
3 pages long. One of them was 1 sentence long. It makes sense that the church would be a little bit more willing to accommodate a 3-page law than a 1-sentence law.
And vocab, did you see what the church's actual statement was on this?
Yeah, I got the article up in regards to the recent thing. Yeah, the federal law.
The first sentence is that our position on marriage and temple ceremonies will not change. It's well known and will not change.
So that's what's said. That's what's said in relationship to this. Oops, sorry, my audio. That's what's said in relationship to this. But here's what's interesting to us again. You may say it's unthinkable, but because of a canon that's not closed and continuing revelation via prophets, living prophets in charge, no one can guarantee what will or won't be said in the future of official Mormon doctrine and proclamations.
I would answer that by saying this, as someone who doesn't like, I tend to avoid this subject really because I feel like it, it's not my favorite subject to talk about. However, if we're to talk about changing marriage doctrines in our church has sustained man and woman in two different forms. Okay.
Yeah, man and woman and woman and woman and woman and woman.
Singular. But American Christianity and Protestantism has adopted same-sex marriage by multi-denominations. So I don't exactly know why we're ones on the chopping block when it's like that.
Well, okay, Kwaku, does that mean I can't ask you questions about the LDS church position?
Logical end. If I understand you correctly, I want to steel man.
Well,
your
no,
position.
my point is though that the closed canon has still resulted in sola
scriptura and sufficiency has
that
resulted,
didn't really prevent it.
Yeah, there's been more sola scriptura closed canon Christian churches that have adopted gay marriage than our open canon has.
So that's why I don't see why that's the catalyst for it.
That was why the United Methodist Church broke up, is because they're giving females the priesthood and they're endorsing homosexual pastors.
And whenever you look at the people who support the things you're talking about, they're not citing the sufficiency of Scripture. And that's not something they hold to. They don't hold that Scripture alone is the determining authority.
So
otherwise, they would never come to this conclusion.
Isn't the nature of the closed or
no, but I'm saying they don't hold. That's not what they hold to. No, that's why they have signs that say things like "God is still speaking today." Have you ever seen that sign on the United Church of Christ? They do not believe in that really in the way you're saying, because they don't even believe that the canon was really ever closed in a way that matters anyway. That's why they say things like
canon churches can adopt gay marriage and females in the priesthood. And your criticism is that our open canon leaves us vulnerable to that possibility of wokeness. To me, the nature of the canon being open or closed is not the issue. It's the nature of the hearts of the people. And we actually have found so far that having a modern prophet has been a bulwark against wokeism because it has less interpretation of Scripture mingled with the precepts of men as a vulnerability. Now, your logical conclusion is correct. If we have an open canon, just like Peter, upon praying on his roof, received the revelation of the unwashed animals coming down in the sheet, thus indicating that now we're no longer going to preach the gospel just to the Jews, and we're going to now go out to the Gentiles. If you really wanted to go there, you could say, taking that open canon and the modern prophets to its logical conclusion, you could see a possibility of a prophet coming out and saying, oh, we're going to religiously legalize this now. The huge problem in that reasoning, though, is that same logical conclusion could say, well, the Mormon church is vulnerable to legalizing, let's say, euthanasia, doctor-assisted suicide. Well, let me tell you, in all three dispensations, the Old, the New Testament, and the Restored Church, prophets have said no to homosexual marriage, especially in the temple ceremony. So using the collective witness model of all three dispensations, I personally extremely doubt that will ever happen, in the same way that in all three dispensations of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Restored Church, our prophets and leaders have said life is sacred. We're not going to legalize abortion anytime soon either.
Well, I hope all those things are true, of course. I think it'd be better for to
say, and this is a, I feel like we should say this just because I want to value everyone's humanity here, and I know there are going to be people that are watching this that are gay. I do feel like sometimes in this discussion about homosexuality and the church, and I'm quoting people who've told me this face to face, gay people often feel like they're being used as a pawn in certain sectarian fights. And I want to make sure that if anyone's watched this, they know that's not what we're trying to do. I personally do not want to see the legal rights of anyone taken away. I personally, speaking as Kwaku, do not want to see the government go in and break up marriages, whether they're
we want to see less governmental intervention, not more.
Yes. I want to make clear, I don't condone any sort of attack or bullying or anything like that to those who are gay. Because I know people will be watching, and I do think sometimes that needs to be made clear with the
just like my reference to doctor-assisted S word, it does not mean it is not meant to be a political football for families that might be struggling with that situation.
But I think.
Well, do you think two men who are married is actually a valid marriage in the sight of God?
I think that that's a question that doesn't really necessarily matter at this point because it's something that's becoming part of the state, right? Where
The state
I'm
stole
not
marriage,
saying-
bro.
Well,
the
it's like
state
if somebody
stole
said,
marriage.
do you think Southern plantation owners can actually own people? And do you think God is okay with that? We wouldn't say, I hope. I don't think that question really matters because it's legal in the South. We would say, no, get that out of here.
I just made that preface because as someone who's black and straight, okay, even though some of the comments say I'm not black and straight, I don't think.
Well, this is where I kind of feel that
I hate
Athanasian Creed
these-
hinders these guys.
Well, let's make this clear because
Okay.
sometimes we forget on this subject we're talking about people. We're not just talking about concepts. So we do need to, as humans, I don't think we should compare slave owning and gay marriage. Okay, I don't think.
Wait, no. Okay.
I know that you're not, but some people will
what
take
am-
it that way, which is why I'm making that clarification.
But Quaker,
Because
can I
we're dealing
ask
with
you,
people.
do you believe that two men being married is a valid marriage in the sight of God?
I believe the only valid marriage is eternal marriage,
Which
allow
how would
us
you
to do
define
that.
eternal marriage?
and eternal marriage is the union of a man and a woman be able to create spirit children in the next life.
Can two men create spirit children in any life?
No, two men cannot, and two women
and that's
cannot.
what's part of our theology there, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, I know that.
No,
That's-
I'm not here to say though that we should use them as pawns in the discussion or try to break up their legal bindings or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't
and
advocate
we're
that.
also very careful to say that your state-sanctioned marriage, in the eyes of the state that has unified you in a marriage the state accepts, is a different thing than the one, as you say, in the eyes of God. Because no matter what a Calvinist believes is valid in the eyes of God, or what a Mormon believes is valid in the eyes of God, that's all different than what the state of California or the state of Arizona has chosen is valid in the eyes of Caesar.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to be extremely sensitive about how we word this, because one of the big lessons that was learned during Prop 8 and one of the worst gross emotional leverages that was applied against Christians was talk shows like this getting clipped and getting sent out saying, look, those people want to take away your rights and want to take away your state-sponsored marriage.
Well, you guys don't have to air this part if you don't want to. That's fine with me.
No, it
But
has
I
to
mean,
be talked about, though. The hairs have to be split.
It's an important thing for people to discuss. I
Yeah,
think.
and we can discuss, but and we can also clarify because again, we're still talking about real people, and I think sometimes we forget. It's like when we talk about the A word, the ABOcean word, right? Sometimes we focus a lot on the babies. We still forget like there may be a woman in the congregation who has had an abortion, right?
Well, and I
it's
think-
good to remember the humanity of the.
How many roads? Too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all